Michelle, thank you so much for joining us here.
Pleasure.
First time to Dublin?
Oh no, many times to Dublin. I'm actually part Irish, so always happy to be here.
Does Guild do well in Ireland?
Yeah, we actually have a huge team here. So we have some of the best engineers at Guild are right here in Dublin. We have our customer service team here, our accounts payable team here. So Ireland has been a home for a lot of Guild employees and also, of course, Guild customers.
And let's also talk about, one of the main reasons you're here is also to talk about your management style, which has been seen as quite unique when looking at other tech CEOs of e-commerce platforms.
Yeah.
Why don't you help our audience understand how you like to approach your management style and being the CEO of Guild?
Sure, yeah. Well, my dad was an entrepreneur, so I grew up with this entrepreneur who was passionate about his company, his people, his customers, and I think that, rubs off after all the years of watching him. So, Mark Parker from Nike, I'm on the Nike board, and he said something once that resonated. He said his job is to edit and amplify, to understand what's going on in his company, to make sure that teams are focused on what's most important, and then to amplify that. And I think if you're doing that, it's really incumbent on you to get to know the teams. I don't have a desk, I don't have an office. I move every few weeks and sit with a different team, get to know people, work really hard in making sure I'm getting obstacles out of the best people's way and the like.
So you don't think there should be any boundaries between your employees and you as the CEO?
Yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about transparency and just being very clear with the team, getting to know people on a personal level. I want people who work at Guild to give their all, and for them to give their all, they have to believe that they're part of a mission and vision, and that the people at the top of the company are looking out for their career paths.
And so you were just pointing out, you like to sit with your employees and move around and kind of brainstorm with them on a regular basis.
Yeah, so I started, when I first started the company, I spent a week sitting with every different team, and I liked it so much, almost 2 years later, I haven't stopped. So I'll go park with the engineers for a month, and we have an open office floor plan, so I'll just find a desk, sit there for a month, move on to a different team. And it's remarkable how much you can pick up about the culture, what's going on, what's important to the team, who some of the best people are. So I've really enjoyed that.
But you don't think it's intimidating at some point for members of your
no
company
doubt
to,
when
to
somebody
sit with
is,
the CEO? And
no doubt when someone's shopping for diapers and I'm sitting right there next to them and oversee them getting their groceries at noon or something, I'm sure they're a bit intimidated. But I think my style's always been one that's very approachable, and it's been a real privilege for me to see our best people at work.
Your management style, how has it evolved over your career? Because you started at Travelocity and then came to Citigroup, and now you're at Guild. Has your style changed as you've changed employers?
Well, I think the values have always been the same. Be very connected, be very present, understand how to get obstacles out of people's way, shine the spotlight on people, communicate with a lot of transparency and conviction. Those things have been the same. It's changed. I started Site 59, in my 20s, and we were a team of, ultimately 80 people acquired by Travelocity. We grew to 5,000 people plus 2,000 contractors. Citigroup, 300,000 people. I had a global team, and then Guild. So I think the means change, but the values remain the same.
And let's also talk about being a woman in tech, a leader of an e-commerce platform. We've been making so many strides in pushing more women into entrepreneurship and tech, but do you still think that there's a lot of room for improvement?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that tech is obviously, and you can feel it here, tech is still a very male-dominated world, and that's fine. I think what we're finding is more and more young women who are saying, this is the career I want. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to control my destiny. I want to, I have an idea I'm passionate about. And that to me is just a super, super exciting time for women in tech and women in business. I host in New York a regular breakfast with a good friend of mine for women in tech. And it's getting bigger and bigger every few months when we launch it. And more awesome women doing things that, I'm proud of watching them achieve.
And Michelle, you're also a mom.
Yes.
And recently, many CEOs have been speaking out about whether you can really balance being a good mom as well as a successful executive or CEO. Indra Nooyi, the CEO of Pepsi, recently said that you can have it all, that it's very tough to be good at being a mother as well as a key leader. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think it's impossible by any stretch. I think you have to be. I don't know what balance is, but I know what structure is. So I have 2 little kids, 6 and 4, and they're just amazing and enormous amount of fun. I bring them to school each morning. They start school early, and then my husband and I drop them off, and I get to work. I leave the office every day religiously at 5, unless there's something really critical. And then I'm home by 5:15 with the kids. We make dinner and have pillow fights and fort building contests and homework. And then I'm back online from 8 to 11 or 11:30 every night. So to me, that works incredibly well. It's very structured. People know what to expect. If someone needs me between the hours of 5 and 8, they know to call me because I'm not going to be checking email. But they also know that I'm not going to go to bed until I've finished off the day really well. And so my advice to women and men who are all trying to figure out how to be great husbands and fathers and mothers and add value to your community is, to just make sure the time you're spending is on the things that matter most. Every quarter when I'm on a long flight back, I'll probably do it coming back from Dublin, I stare at my calendar and I look at, am I doing the things with my time? Is my time consistent with what I think my most important priorities are? And then I'm always trying to Jenny Craig, my calendar, which is take those things off that are, weighing me down.
But what do you think employers can do to ensure that they create a landscape, a culture where women can achieve both, being successful at their job as well as being a good mom?
Well, women look up. There's no doubt about it that if you look up in your company and you don't see women who are role models, you don't see women who are balancing being a mom and being a professional, you don't look up and admire somebody, it's very hard. I've gotten asked many times by companies, well, how do we create a more female-friendly environment? And then they start coming up with task force and I would say, well, who are the 5 women they look up to? If you look up and you see women in your company, if you're an engineer, and you look up in the engineering department and you see other women who are doing a great job, who are balancing it, who are unabashed about leaving to go to the child's play or to make a doctor appointment, that's the right company and the right culture for you. So my advice is always, if you're trying to bridge the gender divide, especially in engineering jobs, especially in tech, find those women you can cultivate and develop, help them step up, because when you do, they'll be tremendous role models. Even sometimes inadvertently, they'll be tremendous role models to the women around them.
Let's now switch focus to the business, e-commerce, online fashion. Guild's still seen as one of the leaders in that space, but it's becoming highly competitive with the likes of Net-a-Porter, among others. How does Guild maintain its position, or do you think right now it's been tough given the competitive landscape?
Well, it's an amazing market, and I think the vast majority of fashion is still offline, and so of course you're going to see more competitors come in. And I think that keeps all of us on our toes. How do we get better? How do we make shopping more social, more mobile, more engaging? The reality is we're at a sea change in fashion, the way we've been before in travel, when I was in travel or financial services, where Gen Y customers are saying their preferred way of shopping is online. They still want all the fun, the excitement. They want to be able to share what they're wearing. They want people to comment on it. But they prefer to buy fashion online now, which is really the first time that studies have shown that. And so our job is to make sure that they're always getting, discovering great brands, great product, telling the stories, curating the experience, letting them share with others, so that young, affluent, stylish customer around the world turns to Guild first.
What do you think is Guild's next step in terms of its growth strategy?
We're super excited about international. So we have about 23% of our sales are now coming from outside the U.S., really without us doing much at all. We don't have a presence anywhere except for in Japan. We haven't localized a lot. We don't, we haven't had local merch strategies. So all of that has been on the forefront for us. We just launched, we're really focusing on Asia. We just launched Alipay last week, and obviously focused on Singles Day. And so really putting in place local language, local marketing efforts, local merch strategies, the right sizes, the right brands, and starting to think about distribution hubs in Asia as well.
At CNBC, we've been covering the slowdown in emerging markets and how that's been a big concern for investors. So you're saying that international expansion is a part of your growth strategy and a priority, but is the slowdown that we're seeing in some of these economies a threat? There's
a bit of a slowdown, but the shift to online is a tsunami. And so while there may be a slowdown in luxury in some of the emerging markets, the shift to digital, and particularly mobile, frankly, the shift to mobile in these markets is astounding. And so our job is to make sure we're capitalizing on that taking advantage, having a great offering for those customers.
And how do you grow in China, where right now Alibaba is really dominating that space?
Yep, I think it'll be with partnerships, and so you'll see for, we launched Alipay in partnership with Alibaba. We'll be on Singles Day launching through Weibo some social programs, as well as through Taobao and Alimama some marketing efforts and programs. And so I think China, in my opinion, generally requires partnership, and so we're in conversations with several players right now. Just got back from a trip.
Oh, interesting. And now, obviously, aside from this digital age, one of the big threats is data security and these data breaches that have been taking place. What are you doing to ensure that your customer data is safe and secure?
Well, look, you always have to, that's always job number one, right? And so I don't think any company can sit on the stage and say it's unequivocal, right? It's always changing, and we have friendly hacks all the time at Gilt, where we hire people to come expose our vulnerabilities. So we're always sort of staying ahead of our game. We clearly do, we have a pretty large team who thinks about data and data security and architecture of our systems. And we follow very closely. The nice thing is there's great consortiums and players across industries working together to share information and to stay ahead of people who would otherwise hack information.
But does data security become such a large issue for customers that it could potentially result in customers not shopping online as much?
Well, I think this has been the age-old question since the beginning of the internet, right? Privacy, security. I think the vast majority of customers understand that the benefits of online shopping outweigh potential threats, and frankly, a lot of the data security things you've seen have been in-store. So you think about Target's breach or Home Depot's, those were in-store breaches. And so I think our job is to make sure that we're always staying cutting edge, we're staying ahead of people, and we're keeping our consumers really well informed, and that we react really well. And I think sometimes you see the difference between some of these breaches, one company and another, is actually how they react. Do they notify customers quickly? Do they stand by, making sure that they get charges cleared? So we spend a lot of time even doing prep dress rehearsals on if there was a breach, what would we do?
This has been a big year for tech M&A, Facebook buying WhatsApp, many other tech companies looking at ways to build out their portfolio via inorganic growth. What about Gilt? Would they be looking to buy maybe one of their competitors or a smaller brand, perhaps?
Yeah, we're always looking at stuff like that. I feel very excited about our international growth strategy being the organic growth path for us, but we never, of course, rule out the possibility of an acquisition where it makes sense.
And I have to ask you, your company has been around for a while now, you're well funded.
Yeah.
When is the IPO coming?
We'll see. We're not in a rush. I think the critical thing is that we do it at the time that's right. We've, are very focused on generating cash from operations. We just crossed that, so, we don't need to be out there. But we'll see when the time's right.
But is that something that you're keeping on your radar?
I think it's the likely outcome, absolutely.
Okay.
Good.
Well, we're going to leave it there. Michelle Peluso, CEO of Gilt. Thank you
Pleasure,
so much
Seema.
for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.